Game controllers have been around for many decades. Now that's a long time. Here's what the first gaming controller looked like, and this is what it looks like right now. So how did we get here? In 1962, Space Wars was created, a space combat video game with an action-packed gameplay. Okay, maybe there was barely any action. The gameplay was controlled by two players, the Needle and the Wedge. Moving through the stars, each ship had limited weapons and fuel, which was controlled by this controller. The Space War Box. Super awkward and uncomfortable to use. But a decade later, the first home console would appear. The Magnavox Odyssey. Innovation. The worst gaming console. You just put in the cartridge and control the white dot, using overlays on your TV screen to play the game. Keep score, do it yourself. With the controller, it had a reset button and two knobs, one to move vertical and another to move horizontal. And it was also multiplayer. Who's shooting? Oh, it's the Odyssey gun, also known as the shooting gallery. You use this bad boy and you shoot at the TV. It doesn't actually work. You have to use your imagination because sensor bars weren't invented yet. Great news! Atari just released Pong, a simulation of table tennis, and it became very popular and helped kick down the door for the gaming industry. The new controller, the paddle, twist it and control the paddle up and down. That's about it. 1976, the Fairchild Channel F released. I don't know who the hell makes these names. The controller had 8 directional controls, the joystick, the paddle, and could be pushed down and pulled up as well. Gaming update, the Atari broke the industry with the first gaming joystick that was comfortable to play with. Now that's amazing, with other games becoming iconic to this day. Another gaming update, 1979, Mattel Electronics joins the gaming industry and makes the N-Television, a phone with buttons and terrible overlays. Alert! Another joystick was created. It's just slimmer. It's the Commodore 64. Oh, you also created another one that looks like a spaceship, and another one with just one more button. Oh look, the ColecoVision, another phone controller. Well, that's great. Vectress just released a controller that looks like a fight stick. Now someone's innovating, and so is the ColecoVision Super Action Controller, with more numbers on it. Finally, the NES innovated with a nice, sleek, small controller with an iconic D-pad. Easy for platforming games with 2 action buttons that have letters now. I think this company will innovate better controllers in the future. The NES Zapper and shoot in-game targets. Unlike someone we know, it actually shoots. New challenger! And they just copy and paste the NES controller. Lazy company. Nintendo created the NES Advantage. Put it on a flat surface and play comfortably. The Sega Genesis just came out, but they now added a third button. An unpopular controller that failed miserably. Difficult to use and unprecise. The Power Glove. Just look how terrible the buttons are. Apollo Pro Joystick, a multi-compatible arcade stick for the Sega Mega Drive, Neo Geo, PC Engine, and Super NES. SNES, more buttons on the NES controller. Gizmo, no, not that Gizmo, this one. The Commodore 64 is back. The Cheetah Annihilator. Ah! There's a mouse in the house! Oh wait, it's a computer mouse. Wait, no, that's the Super NES mouse. And it's not even compatible with an actual computer? Who made this? Why are people making this? Now, the controllers just get weirder from here. The Konami Laser Scope. The Zapper, but it's voice controlled, and they're headphones. You can use this for your Game Boy or for the Walkman. Philips CDI was released to mainly watch movies, access educational programs, and play games. It looks exactly like the SNES with no start button. That's about it. The first flight-looking controller with indications of horizontal and this graph here. The Menacer, Sega Genesis, the Super Scope SNES. One having a trigger on top and the other one having an actual trigger where the trigger is supposed to be. Batter Up, 24 inches in a baseball bat shape, manufactured for the Sega Genesis and SNES. Remember the Sega Genesis controller? They added 3 more buttons and made it smaller. But why? It was used to play games like Street Fighter, games that required more buttons. The Activator was the first full-body motion sensing controller released in 1993 for the Sega Genesis. Unfortunately, it got discontinued for how horrible it was. Ceiling fans and other objects on the ceiling would ruin the IR beams on the Activator. $80 and restrictive gameplay? Get the hell out of here. Guess what? An ugly see-through controller.
Lethal Enforcers.
Now you can shoot with 2 players at the same time. The first racing wheel will come with a pedal set, the Thrustmaster Formula T1. The Sega Saturn just came out and is bulkier than the Sega Genesis controller. Sony just released a PlayStation 1. The action buttons now have shapes on them. The Virtual Boy just came out and the handles look like aliens with 2 D-pads on each side. Namco made one for the PlayStation. Oh, that's the Namco Niji-Con. It's used for driving games and made gaming feel a little bit more fresh. Tiger R Zone. Probably one of the worst ideas to happen. A console on your head and the controller button layout is a disaster. Yeah, I'd rather have an Apple. No, not that Apple! The Apple Pippin. Nah, that's a boomerang. It's a weird nipple in the middle. Incoming. Big innovation is coming up. The N64. The first analog stick controller held in 3 different ways when playing games. You can play 3D games, 2D, and first-person shooters. A small joystick in the middle for your thumb. The Sega Saturn just released a 3D pad. It allowed for better precision when playing 3D games, which was becoming popular at the time. Sony upgrade. The PlayStation controller now has dual analog and is the first to do so. The DualShock is now here. It now gives vibration feedback based on game activity. Microsoft joins the gaming industry. They released their first gaming controller on PC. The controller has a special mode called Tilt, where you tilt the controller left or right, which is intended for racing games. The Dreamcast. And the controller wire is different from the rest. They added it on the bottom to make gamers change the angle in which they played. It will inspire one of the controllers we know and love today. Also adding the VMU, Visual Memory Unit. It was used for a memory card, multiplayer gaming, second screen functionality, file manager, and sound capabilities. I'm gonna go fishing. Sega Fishing. Sega Bass Fishing is released, and it's the first released fishing game with a fishing game controller. I call that Fish-tastic. Moroccan. Shake them. Shake, shake. Shake them. Shake them. Do I need to explain more? The PlayStation 2 just came out with a DualShock 2 controller. The analogs are more stiff and it weighs more than the previous controller. Sega discontinued the Dreamcast but became a third-party developer. Sega announced an expanded GameCube port of Phantasy Star Online and chose the GameCube because it resembled the Dreamcast controller. So they added a keyboard in the GameCube and they made it a GameCube keyboard. GameCube controller, a standard in gaming. Do I have to explain it? The GameCube is amazing. The gun shoots. The first Xbox is released, and the first generation controller kinda looks like an older controller. But if you thought this controller was big, this is even bigger. Steel Battleline was a game over $200 and came with this big ass controller with 40 buttons. Now that's innovation. That's what I call something new. The Xbox released the Xbox Controller S. The Japanese disliked the Duke so much because it wasn't suitable for their hands, as they had smaller hands compared to Americans. You know Donkey Kong has his own controller? Not that one, silly! That one! The Katana, the Soul Controller. A 38-inch DualShock controller shaped like a Tachi sword. Swinging a sword makes the player in the game do the same. The Chainsaw Controller, a special controller from Resident Evil 4, and it came in 2 versions. A yellow chainsaw for the GameCube and a red one for the PlayStation 2. The Xbox 360 came out, and unlike its predecessor, the Xbox 360 controller isn't so damn big. The Haramix guitar was designed to simulate the playing of a guitar. The PlayStation 3 just came out, and it came out the 6-axis. The term 6-axis was to refer. What the fuck did I write? The Wii came out with a sensor bar for motion sensing. The Wii remote came with straps and nunchucks, but also had many accessories for the controllers. Another controller for the Wii was the classic controller to play like older games. The DualShock 3 with a better battery and haptic technology that was just vibration. Another Guitar Hero 3 controller came out. Another Namco gun. Another Guitar Hero. A microphone. A drum set for Rock Band. We just came out with the classic controller Pro. The turntable. But now we turned the table. A skateboard to ride on. Tony Hawk's. I'd rather go skating. Move. No, move. The PlayStation Move. Navigation controller to navigate the world. Another Guitar Hero. But the Xbox 360 would create something new. The Kinect. You can talk to it. You can wave to it. The Wii U gamepad was created. Touchscreen and motion control. Of course, Nintendo will create the Wii U Pro Controller. The DualShock 3 has now upgraded to the DualShock 4, adding a touchpad, better analog grips and triggers. Xbox wireless controller, better analog grips, and now the Kinect is available for the Xbox One. And for some reason, 2013, they made Wii Bowling. Why would you do it 7 years? Don't ask me, who cares? Steam just came out with their controller.
What an atrocity.
Nintendo made the Switch. They made Joy-Cons, 2 controllers in one controller in 2. With a motion sensor, they also made, but there's a problem. The Joy-Con drifts, meaning the controller acts on its own. Enter Nintendo Switch Pro, and it still drifts. Microsoft will create the Xbox Adaptive Controller, designed for people with disabilities to help make user input for video games more easier and fun. Xbox Series X, for the same shit. PlayStation 5, DualSense adaptive triggers, haptic feedback, and built-in microphone. And that's where we are now. What about the PlayStation 2 camera?
I forgot about that.
And all the VR headsets?
I didn't consider them controllers.
And the mobile controllers?